Hello, it's Dr. Mike here. This is a quick look at physical security, which is part of Topic 2 in my CIS 2640 Security Plus slash, also known as Network Security class. Topic 2, we're looking at Chapter 7 at the time of this recording of the textbook, and it is on physical security. And almost like we talked about before, probably the biggest thing is physical access to a device. So you see some examples here. It's hard to go and attack maybe through the firewalls, through that rings layers of defense, layered defense. Sometimes a direct plug-in of a device, like a USB, for example, or get to physical access to a server and allow you to get boot access to make changes. Or maybe the server is logged in with admin access all the time at the terminal. Could be Windows, could be Linux. So you get the best virtual security, firewalls, segmented networks, strong passwords, but you leave the key open to the server room. So there's levels of protection there, and I didn't want to include this in the previous one, which was organizational security, which that topic, that chapter itself does touch upon it. Chapter 7 gets more into detail. And we talked about first thing is in boot disks. Well, really USB drives. I know it talks about floppy disks and CDs. Those are on the way, but USB is still around. And this is actually leaving USB stick off of the open for the road apple attack. This is a fantastic way to attack something. In fact, there's been several things done here. Different research has been done. And probably the biggest one is Mr. Robot series, fantastic series, and they actually go into, someone picking up and plugging in a USB drive they found. And this research here shows they dropped 300 USB sticks during University of Illinois. 90% were picked up, and 45% of the drives were plugged into something. So it's still a great attack vector. Dropping USB sticks around. And actually, there's actually a scene from Black Hat, which is, I forgot the year of the movie. It's a Hemsworth hacker movie. It is very Hollywoodish. There's a scene where an associate walks in, uses some social engineering. And so this goes back to social engineering attack. So you dress the part. She's dressed like an executive or someone who's going to, at a job interview. And she walks in with a torn up, or I think it was she put coffee on her resume, and begs the guard, say, "I spilled coffee on my resume. Can you print another one for me, please?" And he gives them a USB. Then he, of course, obliges. And being people, we want to help someone else out. Unbeknownst, plugging in that key and opening the Word document, I'll open up a back door. So there's still questions, of course, of endpoint security. We're not going to talk about that. But we've seen DoD sites actually remove or not allow USB devices at all. There's some physical things you can do to actually unplug, physically remove the connections, at least maybe for data itself, on desktops, kiosks, voting machines. So, and even in itself here, as personal security, if you're going to be out and about, and I hope you can see this. This is called a USB smart charger. This only usually called USB condom sometimes. I take some of our travel if I want to plug in a mobile device to an unbeknownst USB port to get power. And of course, I try to pack my own charger, but I always have this with me. That way, I know for sure the data ports, the data pins, I should say, are physically cut. So I can get power only. So think about that as part of your physical protection. It should include that bridge between what we think is the physical world, which is the USB port, and of course, our operating system, or our device in general. There's a lot of devices out there that can mimic. Hack5 has devices that can mimic One is the Bash Bunny, it's one of them, I believe. Rubber Ducky. It looks like a regular USB thumb drive, but in essence, it is a chipset of a keyboard. So here's the best thing is, you plug in a keyboard to your computer. Most computers will accept the keyboard. Sometimes they might ask if you want to add the keyboard, and that should be some security measures here to maybe prevent that, but still, maybe they're not on. And this is a keyboard chipset that mimics a keyboard being plugged into a USB device. And it has some other ROM and some scripts that will actually run, basically type in code, usually like a bash shell or a PowerShell, and run an attack. And it can be done without anyone seeing anything on the screen of the OS. It's going to be blank. So look at the Rubber Ducky or the Bash Bunny by Hack5. That's an example of really specialized devices that you want someone to plug in, even just for a few seconds. And that's part of the attack for the social engineering side. If someone plugs something in, they can actually carry through without any, unbeknownst to them, they install a backdoor or a Trojan, open up a netcat shell, for example. But they can still go through, print the document out, and unplug the device, and it's too late. So, and that follow through allows someone to take a USB stick and do that type of attack. So that's talked about in the text here. Something to consider. And let's consider physical security too. We also want to consider mobile devices as part of this. And this is what Drive Imaging talks about. So I'm using the data and Drive Imaging in the forensics realm here, but specifically this last portion here, encrypting files on disk. So really, this comes in handy when physical devices are lost. So again, when we think physical protections, we might think, walls, gates, guards, badge access, removing USB devices, removing USB connections, or not allowing USB devices on premise. But there's things that are going to leave the premise, and those are going to be our mobile devices, or even more of a risk, of course, is work-based laptops. So any provided laptop, maybe to sales, remote salespeople, things like that. These things, they travel a lot, they get stolen, and they get lost. So you want to make sure that full device encryption is used, so someone can't pull the drive out and image that drive using forensics techniques. Or even just a simple bootable Linux system, which we talked about here. It talks about bootable systems. If I get my hands on a lax secure hard drive, I'm able to boot a Linux USB and then see the underlying hard drive and just copy out parts of it and have full access to files, and that data is lost. So again, when we think physical, I know we might really originally think about, again, I mentioned before, walls, guards, gates, things like that. But think about things that leave your premise, these physical devices. So now again, physical security measures, nice little graphic here. Alarms, construction, there's a lot of stuff here. And a lot of this stuff here is might be beyond the expertise of a cyber-based cybersecurity person. So dealing with physical security, it can be a lot of extra work. And some of these things are going to come out in policies. Disallowing USB key drives, for example. Maybe we don't allow them on site, so we do a quick check of anything coming into the data center. But also, we take that same policy and we implement maybe an Active Directory change that will disallow USB drives, things like that. So, and training. So this goes back with this topic, which is training, of course, and policies with that. Access control monitoring. Again, we want a layered access. So I'm not going to draw it out, but the previous lecture talked about layered controls, layered access. We want that with physical too. And it's not, you can see these things are locks, CCTVs, door controls, and also auditing to make sure we can see who came into what door, what time. And of course, environmental controls. Now, I mean, again, Mother Nature, No danger will intrude upon any physical security, fire, flood, any kind of damage. So you want to make sure that physical also takes into effect HVAC, fire suppression, fire detection, things like that. And authentication is part of this too. So authentication, we're going to talk about the sort of the soft side of authentication, multi-factor authentication, things like that. But tokens, or a app on a device that's used for that multi-factor authentication. It could be SMS. It could be an actual security app. And there's a lot of these options you can look at. And of course, you got to consider what happens if this device is stolen, and that token's on there. That software-based token's on here. Can I, remotely wipe this device? That's very important. Or remotely at least deactivate that token from being used. So think about the attack vectors. Think about the loss of that device. If that device is anything that helps with authentication, make sure we can approach that. So authentication, authorization. Again, what do you have given? You can prove who you are with authentication. Authorization. What do you have access to? We actually have a whole topic covering that. So, but go and look through that here. Biometrics is another option. Use that for outside of our biometrics on our device. Maybe biometrics are used along with a key card access and or password. So again, multi-factor authentication can happen at the door, not just at the software base too. So, and there's some things about MFA. So best practices. Let's look at NIST again. NIST has a risk management framework. I can get into all of it here. The RMF. It's the 853. Currently it's 800-53 at the time of this recording. There's of course going to be revisions to this, and there's revision 5 here. This NIST framework, you can use this again as a way to audit, for example, physical access authorizations, physical access controls. So PE-3, we can open that up, and you can use this as a way to baseline your physical security. So again, you're not coming to this, where do I start? You saw with layering defense on the sort of the cyber side, the network side. Layering defense on the physical side can be a very big deal. So we have access controls here, and we can make sure these controls are addressed. So again, you have yourself a nice checklist here. Do we enforce access controls? Do we have continuous guards? Do we facilitate any facilities and systems? Do we have any kind of temporal protection in place? So again, you can. This is fantastic research. You can take this, cherry pick it for maybe the assignment, the task you're given as a cybersecurity engineer. You're given the task of physical, and you're like, I don't have any physical experience. I've never even been a security guard in the past. Of course, there's, if you can have the budget and time to reach out and bring in an expert, that's fantastic. But you might not. It might be like, we have a small company. We're not going to hire someone. We have a security guard or security service for around the perimeter, but they're not going to help us with anything within the data center, for example. So we want you to go through and at least do a quick just a quick audit of how we're doing. You're a new security engineer, go to take it. So again, you're not starting with a blank page. At least you can go through here and say, all right, I know what kind of questions I can ask. Maybe I can ask the company that does this, or I can ask the DevOps, the SecOps folks, DevSecOps, whatever the people who work the desks and so on. And I can put this into like an Excel spreadsheet and answer yes, no, or put a little comment. And you can use this to start grading yourself on that. And I don't want to get too much into the risk analysis waters here. There's actually an entire topic on that, but you can see maybe we can put a priority on this. So temporal protection maybe is a huge deal. Maybe that's priority 1, priority 2, and so on. And you can maybe put a risk factor to that. If this is broken, what's our risk? Well, with the data center, it's going to be a risk of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. It's going to be a 9. So this allows you to do some light risk analysis, and you can figure out where the most vulnerable areas are physically and what we're missing. So So don't discount NIST. It's a fantastic framework here, which has a lot of deep areas here. So you might find yourself dealing with, if at all possible, this is also bridges into the business continuity side. So there's a business continuity sort of BC, team or business continuity council, whatever you want to call it. If they have documentation, you can use that. Because chances are they might go through and look at facility locations, environmental controls, fire protections, emergency lighting. These things might be addressed in another area that it actually is up to date. So you might be able to borrow those as part of your assessment. Or even better, bring in that team to help you with maybe a risk analysis for your data center. You might find a lot of this stuff has already been addressed and or been evaluated. So again, it's a huge area. It's got its own chapter here, but that's basically a quick summary of topic 2. In this case, I'll call this topic 2a, physical security, for operational, organizational, and physical security section of CIS 2640. So anyways, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching.